This video is just going to cover chapter 4b, which is about circumference of circles. Now, don't get too scared. All circumference means is perimeter. It's the fancy way of saying it, okay? But this word circumference is only explicitly for circles. Now, this will be the goal. So you need to understand these terms here: diameter, radius, and circumference. You need to be able to find the circumference using a calculator. And this last point here, it says here using an approximation. So what happens is that they give you value of pi, and you are to pretty much substitute these values into the equation to find the circumference. Don't be too scared. So diameter, and we use the letter D, okay? That's just pretty much the distance across the center of the circle, okay? So in my diagram here, if you look at this black line, if you look at this black line that I'll just pretty much redraw and reshade, that is pretty much the distance from one end of the circle, so from here to the other. But the main point is that it must cut the center, okay? It must reach this point right here that I'm going to circle. It doesn't matter which direction the line is, it must go through that point in within the circle, okay? So that's all diameter is. Radius is the distance from the center to the circle to the edge. So if you look at the red line here where radius is, as you can see, it starts from the middle and it reaches the edge of the circle. So that is the radius right there. Now, what I want you to visualize is that the radius is pretty much half the length size of the diameter. So say for example, if I give you a circle and it mentions that the radius is 6 centimeters, the diameter is just going to be double the radius, right? So you can just do 6 times 2, which is 12 centimeters instead. Vice versa, if I give you the radius is 20 meters, your radius is going to be 20 divided by 2, because you know that the radius is half of the diameter. So you work it out to be 10 meters instead. Now, C, circumference C, we use the letter C for circumference, is the distance around the circle. So in chapter 4a, I taught you about perimeter, which is pretty much just adding up all the side lengths together. This is technically the same thing, but it's with circles instead, but we use a specific formula, okay? So we have two formulas here: C equals 2 pi r and C equals pi d. Another way of writing C equals 2 pi r is 2 times pi times r. And then we have C is equal to pi d, which is the same thing as pi times d. That's all. Now, these two equations right here, where it's got r is equal to c over 2 pi and d is equal to c over pi, all this means is that if you are given the circumference, let's say if the question gives you the circumference already, they're going to ask you to find the value of r or d, aka they're going to ask you to find the value of the radius or the diameter instead. Now, pi. Pi right here, okay? This is the symbol for pi that we will always use. Now, if you have any problems with drawing this or like have any questions about it, just imagine this. So in Japan, we have something called torii gates, okay? Where it's got the two beams standing on the side, and then they've got something just running across the top, okay? if you're having difficulty drawing the symbol pi, this is the best way to do it, okay? So it doesn't need to be as fancy and curly like how I have it up here underlined already. You can just do two lines and just draw top part to connect them all, okay? And you'll be fine. Now, pi is a number. It's a number. It keeps going infinitely, okay? It just keeps going. It doesn't stop and it doesn't ever repeat its digits. Hence why it's not a recurring decimal. It keeps going and we don't know where the end is. Now, as of right now, the only thing that you need to know are technically these digits right here. So pi is equal to 3.14 or 3.1415. That will be more than enough, okay? So if you're ever in a situation where you're not allowed a calculator, okay, and you need to answer these questions, you must use these values here. Now, more importantly, the one that I've started right here. That's the easiest one to remember, okay? Now, these formulas here, pi and uh, pi equals c over 2r or pi equals c over d, don't get confused too much, okay? This value, 3.1415 or whatever, 3.14, is pretty much whenever the circumference is divided by its diameter, okay? So when circumference, aka the perimeter of the circle, is divided by its diameter, which is pretty much the distance from one end of the circle to the other, which is highlighted in black here. Okay. And it doesn't matter how big or small the circle is, if you have those two numbers right there, they will always sort of similarly equal to 3.1415 somehow. It may not be exact, but it is very close. Hence why we have named the symbol pi to use for everything involving circles. Now, I'm going to go through some examples here. So finding circumference with calculator. So I hope that you would have your scientific green calculator on hand. If you don't have the green one, if you use Casio, I can still show you that one as well. That one's still fine. So over here it says here, find the circumference of these circles correct to two decimal places, okay? In my first circle here, I'm given 3.5 meters. Now, what is 3.5 meters? Judging from this image here, it's starting from the center of the circle and it reaches the end, the edge of the circle, pretty much like that. Now, this categorizes itself as the radius because the radius is technically the distance from the middle of the circle to the edge of the circle. Now, going back to our previous slide here, we have two circumference formulas, okay? Which one are you going to use? So because we are given the radius instead, we need to use c is equal to 2 pi r, or c is equal to 2 times pi times r. So we need to use that formula specifically because that's what's been given to us. So down here, I'll write c is equal to 2 pi r. Always start out by writing your formula that you plan on using. The next step is to pretty much substitute, aka replacing the letter or the symbol with a known value, okay? So I'm just going to write 2 times pi times r, which is 3.5. And if you type this into the calculator, which I'll show you right here. Okay, let's see if I can shorten this. Oh, whoops. Oh, how do I get rid of this? Okay, so 2 times pi. So the pi symbol on your calculator is located right here where it's red right now. So times 3.5. It will give me 21.991. Okay, so it gives me 21.991. Now, this isn't our full answer yet because we need to round it to two decimal places instead. So we need to do some rounding here. The 9, which I have highlighted in blue, is the second decimal place. What you're going to do after is you're going to look at the digit after this point, which I have starred in black. Now, if this number in particular is within the ranges of 0 to 4, you are going to round down. And what happens when you round down is that the number that's in the blue start position will stay the same. But if my digit in the black start position is between 5 to 9, I have to round up in this case, which means that the blue, which is the blue start digit, which is my place, my second decimal place, will have to increase by 1. Now, you can think of it like, because I'm working with the second decimal place, my maximum is 99. I can't really write 100 anywhere. Okay. So it's like that. So because um this rounds down, my final answer will just be 21.99. But say for example, if my number was 21.996, okay, and I'm forced to round up in this scenario, I can't go back to 21.00 again. It's just not possible. So what you're going to do is go to 22.00. Now, there'll be more talk on rounding, especially when it comes to like these close calls on whether like other numbers change and all. But this is all you need to know for now. Now, over here in my second circle, I have 4 centimeters, and I can see that the line goes from one edge of the circle, it cuts across to the center, and then it extends out to the other side. This is now the diameter. Oh, and I forgot one more thing. This is in meters as well. So always make sure you put your units of measurements at the end according to what you're given. So now my formula for diameter is going to be C is equal to pi d. So C is equal to pi times d, or I'll just write pi d first, and then I can just substitute my values in. So if d is equal to 4, I'm going to replace the letter d with the number 4 instead. This will now equals to 4 pi. And if I type this in my calculator, pi times 4. Now, depending on your calculator, your answer will change. So as you can see on my calculator right now, I have the number 4 pi. Because we want to work with decimal places, what you're going to do is press the double arrowed button, which is just above the enter, and it will spit and change what 4 pi is into a decimal. Okay, so what we have here is 12.566. 12.566. Next, we need to do our rounding. So just remember, so the second decimal place is just technically 2 digits after the decimal point. Now, where the black start is, got to check whether I need to round up or round down. Because 6 is within 5 to 9, I need to round up in this case. So that 6 in the blue is going to change to 12.57 instead. So 12.57 centimeters, just like that, okay? I'm just going to move everything over just to make it more readable. Now this, I'll let you try it out for yourselves. And if you wanted to show me, that's perfectly fine. Next up, we have finding the circumference without the calculator. So if you're ever given a scenario where you can't use your calculator and you need to calculate what the circumference is, it's pretty easy. Just follow the same formulas that you've learned previously. C is equal to 2 pi r, or C is equal to pi d, or in other words, 2 times pi times r, or pi times d in this case. Now, going to our first example here, I have 10 meters, and it looks like it's cutting from one end of the circle to the other. Hence, I know this is the diameter instead. So the circumference formula I'm going to use is C is equal to pi d. So C is equal to pi d. Now you see in this question here, they actually give us the value of pi. Because pi exists as an infinite number that keeps going and doesn't stop, you can't obviously work it out by hand. It's literally impossible. Well, it is possible, but it's just going to take a lot of time, which we don't have. So what we do is we give these approximations instead. So we just shorten it to make your lives a bit easier. So I have here pi is equal to 3.14. So what I'm going to do is just substitute the values that I know into where the letters are. So I have 3.14 times 10. Now, if you remember from the start of the year, I taught you about multiplying by tens and hundreds and thousands and what happens to the decimal point. Now, just to recall, because we are multiplying by 10, because we are multiplying in general, the decimal point is going to move to the right somehow. By how many? That just depends on how many zeros we see. So because we only have one zero, which is a 10, it is going to move one decimal point to the right. Now your final answer will end up being 31.4 meters. Okay. Now, the next thing. So I have a radius of 14 centimeters just because of the fact that it starts at the center and then it just goes to the end. Okay. So I'm going to use this formula instead. C is equal to 2 pi r, which is the same thing as 2 is equal to 2. C is equal to 2 times. So we know that pi is 22 over 7. So we're just going to replace that instead. Times 14. Now you can start doing your cross-canceling methods. So if you look at the 7 here, I can actually cross-cancel it with the 14. So this will be a factor of 1 to 2. Then what I'm left with is 2 times 22 times 2. So we can sort of figure out that 2 times 22, well, 2 times 22. So if we just do it normally, we have 2 times 2 is 4. And then we look at the other way, 2 times 2 is 4. So it just ends up being 44. But we also have the second 2 we need to multiply with, which is underlined in blue. So we have to multiply 44 by 2 now. Now we have 4 times 2 is 8. And then the second 4 times 2 is also 8. So the final answer is 88 centimeters. Okay. So that's all. Now, I will leave this to you. You can try it out yourself. You can just follow the same example. But other than that, this is circumference of circles. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask me in class or just come in on Wednesdays after school and I'll be in the library to help people out. Okay? Take care.